As we evolve as writers and develop our own voice, our own style of writing, ultimately we want to become our own best teachers. And one way we can do that is learn to become more conscious of who we are as readers or viewers of fiction, and we start to monitor consciously what our reactions are, what happens to us as an audience, and then we can look at that work of fiction and learn from it. We can deconstruct it, we can experience more consciously why it has done to us, what it has done to us. I think one thing that happens in fiction today that didn't necessarily happen 10, 50 years ago is, I like to think of it in terms of fiction that will give you a hit. And this is something that happens in the story that it can cause us to produce adrenaline. It can be an exciting event. It could be a romantic event. It could be a surprise. It's something that gives us a brief moment of excitement. Or equivalent to like a video game reward. It's something where it causes our chemistry to react in such a way that for the remaining period of that fiction, what happens afterwards, we are experiencing in an enhanced mode. What happens after that hit, as the story continues, is more interesting, is more vibrant, is more exciting, feels more real to us, has a stronger impact on us because of that one moment of excitement. In the course of the story, there'll be something that will happen that will excite us, and it makes it easier to read the story because we're amped to read it. And I think in general, fiction in the past didn't always do this, so that it could be a great work of fiction and we still needed a certain amount of discipline to pay attention to it in order to get the real worthwhile stuff from it. And so we have improved as storytellers. These days we've learned that one great way of telling of a story is to include in it these little hits that help motivate the reader and help the reader become more compelled towards that fiction and gain more from it. Now, there are so many unique forms of giving the viewer a hit that every time I watch a movie or read a book, it's fun for me to monitor myself and realize when this happens in the course of experiencing that work of fiction. And I really admire storytellers who come up with unique ways of giving the viewer a boost. So it can happen in any type of storytelling. If it happened, let's say that it happened in a drama. So very early on in this story, you have best friends who have a fight and they stop talking to each other. And that fight, it's a moment of, it's a period of excitement, it's a period of drama that makes whatever happens afterwards. It could be describing the protagonist showing up to work and doing very regular things, but because of what happened before, the viewer is more primed for what happens to the protagonist, cares more, and is being more excited, has more energy to absorb the really high quality, less exciting aspects of the story. Think back to a story you have been working on and think of one or two of your favorite parts of that story, and I bet you that very likely those points, those scenes, are ones that would give the viewer a hit. If it's a good story, I love the slow spots as much as the exciting spots, or the spots where the protagonist wins a prize or falls off a cliff or discovers a secret, or one of those moments where the excitement builds. And it's in those slow spots that a lot of the times kind of, some of the poetry can happen. You can bring the viewer to a place, a time that they've never been before. You can explore what your characters are about. You can fill in that fictional world for the viewer. And often it's really good timing on the writer's part to coast, have these points where the viewer gets a burst of excitement and then coast. They're like a glider. Then after that, it's perfect timing to have, a situation where your protagonist is very slowly walking down the street and taking in all the detail as they walk away from the building that just exploded. It's very effective to have a slow, coasting portion of the story happen after a moment of excitement. I know for me, the situation is like, there are things that I find very interesting, but I'm not really sure. I know that at least some people will find it interesting, but if I put those things after a moment of excitement, that is going to make it much more likely that everyone will be primed to find those things that otherwise a lot of people might find kind of boring. Because they have a little bit of adrenaline in them, it gives them enough energy to have their eyes open to those things that we personally might find very touching, very poetic, and a lot of other people might not always find those things so entertaining. Very recently, I have contemplated a new approach to giving the viewer a hit, and I'm going to present it to you because I think it's a good example that is not your typical hit. Okay, a typical hit would be a car chase or someone shot by a gun or something like that, something obviously exciting. But there are many things that we don't think of, first off, that can still be exciting, that can give the viewer a hit. And here is one. Okay. In reality, the people we know, how often does this happen to you? Think of anyone you know. How often has it happened to where you think you know them well, and then you discover something new about them that you never knew before, and it's a surprise, and it causes you to repaint who you think they are. My point is that this happens very often, and in the real world, this is how we get to know people. So as a writing technique, when you're developing a character, instead of feeling like you need to get that character all on the page as soon as possible to get the story rolling, save something, have something in mind that is still an important part of their character that you are not going to let the other characters know or the reader know until later in the second half of the story. And this is going to be a surprise. So you intentionally plan this as a hit later on in the story. You're sitting down to write your story, and you pick a character, any of the most involved characters in the story, and say, okay, this character, I'm going to give them a secret that will be revealed later on, and I'm going to do this as a way of giving the viewer a hit at a good point in time so that I can intentionally let the audience coast through the next scene or two scenes in the story. When you're developing your character, ask yourself, is this a good unknown that can be the secret revealed later on in the story? Let's say that you have a character who's a little domineering, energetic, kind of a little bossy, likes to take control, always has ideas about what can be done, and not always the leader of a group, but definitely one of the activating agents of that group of characters. And then much later in the second half of your story, you find out that this character was in an automobile accident and spent 2 years hospitalized, 2 years bedridden, not in normal society, not doing the regular things, but in this other reality where they could hardly do anything, and they were restrained to the one room and they could hardly move. And then afterwards you look at the character in a different way. So through that reveal, that character undergoes a completely different rewrite for the audience, for the viewer. And it's an effect that it can happen in real life, and it can give your viewer a hit. So thanks for watching. I just want to thank everyone who's left comments. I read them, I appreciate them. I usually only respond to comments if they're some form of a question, but I appreciate them. I appreciate, I'm just so glad to get intelligent, insightful comments, and thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos and want to return the favor, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell a friend. And also, please go check out my bizarre alternative fiction at solomation.com. I hope that your writing goes great. And if you have recently been your own teacher and discovered a new way in a film you watched or a book you read, that you were given a hit and you think it's an effective form of storytelling, please leave a comment. Again, I hope your writing goes great, and have a good day.